The surprise callback to TNG's Tasha Yar in Star Trek's new movie explained. Star Trek's upcoming movie has fans buzzing for all sorts of reasons: a fresh story, new faces in Starfleet, and what promises to be one of the franchise's boldest leaps forward since Star Trek First Contact. But what caught everyone completely off guard wasn't a new ship, captain, or villain. It was a quiet, powerful callback to one of the next generation's most tragic and beloved characters, Tasha Yar. The inclusion of Tasha Yar, even in reference, is more than a nostalgic Easter egg. It's a bridge across generations, a reminder of Star Trek's earliest lessons about mortality, sacrifice, and the fragile humanity that holds the Federation together. In a movie universe now wrestling with moral ambiguity, revisiting Yar's legacy can change the way fans, and even the characters themselves, understand what it means to serve in Starfleet. Let's break down what the Tasha Yar callback really means, how it connects to the larger story being told in the new movie, and why it's such a fitting moment for Star Trek to finally honor one of its most overlooked heroes. A small line with massive implications. The callback comes midway through Star Trek Legacy Dawn, the working title of the new film that unites several generations of Starfleet officers. In a briefing scene, a young security officer named Lieutenant Alana Reyes references a classified mission report from Lieutenant Natasha Yar, USS Enterprise D, Stardate 41601.3. To the uninitiated, it's a throwaway detail. To longtime fans, that Stardate marks the Next Generation Season 1 episode Skin of Evil, the one where Tasha Yar was brutally and unexpectedly killed by the malevolent entity known as Armus. Her death shocked viewers and sent ripples through Star Trek history. The fact that a new Starfleet officer would be quoting that report over a century later is deeply symbolic. It signals that Yar's sacrifice wasn't forgotten. It became part of the institutional memory of Starfleet itself. But the reference isn't just about honoring the past. It also reveals how the Federation now uses historical failures, the times when things went tragically wrong, to shape its modern ethics. In that moment, the film ties Star Trek's utopian optimism to the reality that progress is built on the courage of those who didn't live to see it fulfilled. Revisiting Tasha Yar's legacy. Tasha Yar's story has always been bittersweet. A survivor of the lawless Turkana 4 colony, she escaped a childhood of violence and chaos to become Starfleet's chief of security aboard the Enterprise D. Her death in Skin of Evil was abrupt and cruel, not the heroic send-off that such a character deserved. But over time, Star Trek found ways to honor her memory. Through the time travel episode Yesterday's Enterprise, fans saw a version of Yar who lived, who chose to return to a doomed past and die with meaning. Later, her daughter Sella, played by the same actress, Denise Crosby, emerged as a Romulan commander, a product of fate, betrayal, and alternate timelines. The new movie's callback acknowledges both sides of Yar's legacy, the tragedy and the resilience. In the briefing scene, Reyes doesn't talk about Yar's death. She quotes her tactical analysis from the Armus encounter. Lieutenant Yar's report concludes that fear is not an emotion to suppress, but to understand, because the enemy can weaponize the fear we refuse to face. That insight, coming from Yar's voice, resonates throughout the movie. The central theme of Legacy Dawn revolves around confronting what Starfleet has ignored: political secrets, ethical compromises, and even the trauma of past captains. By invoking Tasha Yar, the film roots its moral conflict in the history of someone who lived and died trying to turn pain into purpose. Thematic echoes. What the callback says about Star Trek's new era. Every great Star Trek story revisits the same question: what does the Federation stand for when ideals are tested? The callback to Tasha Yar reframes that question in personal terms. In her brief but powerful career, Yar embodied Starfleet's most human qualities: fear, courage, and compassion born from trauma. The new movie doesn't just quote her, it uses her perspective to challenge the modern Federation. Over the decades, Star Trek has depicted an organization that sometimes loses touch with its humanity. The Section 31 programs, the synthetic bans, and the political manipulation seen in Picard all suggest a Starfleet that occasionally strays from its values. Lieutenant Reyes' use of Yar's analysis becomes a turning point in the film, reminding the crew that Starfleet was never meant to be flawless. It was meant to be honest about its flaws and grow from them. That philosophy, rooted in Yar's personal history, feels like a mission statement for this new generation of Star Trek storytelling. Why Tasha Yar matters more than ever. Tasha Yar's importance in Star Trek's canon has grown with time. When she first appeared, she was groundbreaking, a strong, empathetic, no-nonsense security chief in a 1980s sci-fi show dominated by male heroes. Her vulnerability was her strength. She wasn't invincible. She was real. In today's era of Star Trek, where the stories are more serialized and the characters more psychologically complex, Yar's realism fits perfectly. Her struggles with trauma, her desire to belong, and her determination to protect others are themes that modern Star Trek thrives on. By invoking her, Legacy Dawn does what the next generation didn't have time to do: explore how Starfleet institutionalizes empathy. How do officers train to protect others when they've been broken themselves? How do they channel fear into strength? The movie's callback isn't nostalgia, it's evolution. It reframes Tasha Yar not as a tragic footnote, but as a foundational voice in the ethics of Starfleet security. A subtle tribute to Denise Crosby. Behind the scenes, the callback is also a nod to Denise Crosby, whose portrayal of Tasha Yar left a lasting mark on the franchise despite her short tenure. According to early interviews surrounding the film's production, the creative team wanted to acknowledge Star Trek's forgotten pioneers. While the film doesn't feature Crosby physically, her voice, digitally remastered from a recovered mission log, reportedly plays during a sequence later in the story. In that scene, the ship's computer replays Yar's recorded statement about understanding fear. The moment happens right before a major battle, as the crew prepares to face an unknown alien threat. The sound of Yar's voice, calm, firm, and human, gives the scene emotional gravity. It's a perfect parallel to how her words guided the Enterprise D decades earlier. For fans who remember watching her die in Season 1, hearing her again in a modern Star Trek film feels like closure. Not the kind that rewrites history, but the kind that says, she mattered. She still does. Connecting to Sela and the Romulan storyline, there's also speculation that the callback could set up something even bigger. A connection to Commander Sela, Tasha Yar's half-Romulan daughter from an alternate timeline. The movie's antagonist, rumored to be a rogue Romulan faction operating beyond the collapsed neutral zone, might tie directly to Sela's legacy. If that's true, then the mention of Tasha Yar isn't just symbolic, it's foreshadowing. By invoking Yar's report early in the story, the movie subtly primes audiences for a confrontation between Starfleet's ideals and the remnants of Romulan duplicity, a battle that, in many ways, represents the unfinished business of Yar's own bloodline. The irony would be perfect. Tasha Yar's words, once meant to protect Starfleet from fear, may now inspire a new generation to face the very legacy she left behind through Sela. Star Trek's tradition of remembering the forgotten. Star Trek has a long history of returning to the stories of those who never got their full due. Whether it's Captain Pike's redemption in Strange New Worlds, Ensign Ro Laren's